Yeah, they all. We're ready. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Ridings. Sorry, I had to do it. I was told it was a bad boy for getting wrong on the internet, so I do apologise to everybody. Okay, now, just a bit of housekeeping. If the place gets on fire, get out the door. Okay? That's that done. How are we doing, everybody? I'm Mark, the Bowler Hat Farmer, and for those who don't know, we are on tour at the moment. My partner Gloria and I, we're on tour at present, travelling around the UK to introduce people to this thing called the Challenges of Food. So the tour is called Fork the System for a reason. Okay, line up tonight is Andrew Munro is going to speak first for about 15-20 minutes on electroculture. For those who don't know what that is rocket science. It's something that we introduced at our farm, and it just blew my head away because it went against everything that I knew, understood or believed in horticulture. So Andrew will talk about that. Thanks to the guy, sorry, your name? Jav. For playing tonight. Donations are more than welcome for him. So after Andrew, we're going to have the legend Andrew Bridgen, then myself. Yes, come on, you can try harder. Then there'll be myself, and then we will have the other guy at the back, David Baggett, who thinks he's entitled to wear a bowler hat as well, to do an announcement about this. Okay? All good? Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Munro.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. So you won't know me, maybe some of you do. My position in all of this is to help bring back the soil biome. Simple. So for a year now, I've been involved on this train, and for 5 years prior to all of that, as many of us in this room, I was trying to find my new train. I was a health coach in New Zealand when it all happened, and I've been involved in health and well-being all my life, as well as being a plumber. And obviously, what happened. My health coaching turned from the individual man-woman and the isolationism of trying to help an individual man-woman feel better, be better, to realising, and stupid to say it now, I've actually realised it. Is that better?
Yeah. Well, no, you don't need them, just for the video.
Okay. To realising that if we want to be healthy, we don't want to look at the individual gut biome, for example, which we would have always done, or I did, as well as other things. We want to look at Mother Gaia's biome, do we not?
Yeah.
Pretty simple, right? And aren't we an extension of that biome? Aren't we a cell of the earth? Yeah? That idea I like very much. That came to me on Pam Gregory's recent interview, a cell of the earth. So, if we are an extension, a cell of the biome, a cell of Mother Gaia's biome, a part of her, if we focus our attention on healing her, do we not then get healthy? So before I go into electroculture, geotherapy, microbiology, or a little bit of what I know about it and how it involves this, power towers, ancient megaliths and menhirs, before I go into all of that, let's recognise number one. If you have an installation that I would call an electroculture installation in your garden, you are healing your household. You are creating an energetic island of bioharmonization. Okay? Put that at number one. So, in 1920, some of you may know this, in 1920, a gentleman called Justin Etienne Christoflo created the world's first electroculture patent. Still alive to this day. By 1936, he'd filed 16. Did anyone know about that? No. Between 1920 and 1925, he sold 1 million apparatus globally. 1 million. Anyone hear about that? No. He died in 1937. We think he sold another 2 million between 1926 and 1937. We're not sure. By 1945, and the war effort, and all the copper that was sitting on a 7-metre pole at the end of not every, but a lot of farmers' fields, this massive piece of copper, which was yay wide and yay tall, possibly taller, was sat there at the end of every field, and of course, what would have happened to it? It would have been ripped down and turned into a shell or a bullet, right? Or some kind of armory, and it got landed in Germany or God knows where, right? That's what happened to electroculture. And yet, there was multiple millions of installations. This is from the Canberra Library in Australia. This is an original pamphlet. And at the back of the pamphlet is an order form to buy your apparatus for £6. So this was the advertising. I just want to send it round. Would you mind? Have a quick look, everybody. So we know that there is a protocol. It's a science of some 270 years. 1749 in the modern day goes back to Frenchman, Abbé Nobel, and another Abbé Berthelon in 1781. By the 1780s, they'd figured it all out. Etheric electricity, yes, that word, etheric electricity is a thing and can be captured regardless of its potentiality, which is in the thousands of volts. Every meter, we've got 100 volts potential. We can collect millivolts, absolutely, and that's all we need, and we drive it back into the ground, following the protocol that is now 105 years old. No changes, other than slight adaptations with the new materials that we use. Secondly, so that's the modern day version of the antenna patent that is in there in the first 10 pages. You'll see a picture of it. See if someone can find that picture and send that round, eh? There's a picture of the antenna. You might have it there, actually, or is it? That's the installation with the antenna on top. That's fine, yes. Secondly, we then go back a few more thousand years and we start studying the lost art of ancient megaliths. We're all fascinated by those, right? I am. I'm really fascinated by them. I read that as bedtime reading because it really sort of inspires you. So many ancient civilizations from Central America, South, North, Egypt, of course, but Russia, Siberia, you know they're everywhere, right? India, Indonesia, they're everywhere. There are ancient structures everywhere, and they're all using either ley lines, seismic fault lines, magnetic disruption or discontinuation points, where gamma goes down significantly. Massive one in Connecticut, for example, big vein of hematite comes through the landscape, and what happens? The rock is cut clean off. If you get to that point, you take your dowsing rods, you stand in front of this hematite vein, and this happens. It's insane. And of course, folklore, and it was of course very, very powerfully connected to the Indian communities as well. So these sites are all over the world. We use those specific sites. We can find them in microscopic forms, in the forms of vortexes and geopathic stress points. Did anyone know, for example, that there's an electric grid on the Earth? Every 2 by 2.5 meters, called a Hartmann grid. And every 2.25 meters, east, west, north, south, you have a vortex, a male or a female vortex. Well, we find those for you, or a dowser that you know will, and you place a power tower on those. Now, this is just a home-sized power tower. This is something we use in small gardens, or you would use in your home. Ideally, you want to find these locations with your dowsing rods to locate, like the ancient builders would have done, a specific energetic point. You can find a large vortex, a 4-ring vortex, very, very powerful. You place these power towers in these positions, and then you exemplify the energetics of your natural environment. And that power tower, as Mark will attest to, is the central feature to anything and all that we do. Forget the aerial. The aerial is very important. It adds electromagnetism. That's the final nail in the coffin. But prior to that, we want energy. We want biophotons in the soil. Your power tower. It will draw them in. It will re-emit them. You then add the same rocks, which is essentially volcanic rocks of a certain type, crystal clear quartz, various types of quartz in fact, but very importantly, silicon dioxide. I'm sure most of us in this room will know that crystal clear quartz or silicon dioxide silica is programmable. Gary Oldfield in the 80s, the famous English professor, he proved very much so that you could measure crystal clear quartz, you could measure silica, you could measure the piezoelectric activity coming from it. Piezoelectricity comes from any rock, quite frankly, and quartz, under stress, that is, under a stress or a squeeze, quartz is 50% of the Earth's crust. It's everywhere. The basalt that we use in our projects is 56% quartz. You can see the quartz in it. So we want to add fabulous, fabulous mineral density to the soil. We want that to be programmed and charged by us, by our consciousness. 50% of the story is the protocol. 50% of the story is you and your level of consciousness and your ability to communicate that to the mother, which is this stuff. This is what Silicon Valley is all about, is it not? So we, as human beings, as man, we recognize that we have an ability to communicate with our Earth now. I think we all know that. I think we know that we're trying to be removed from that ability. So as we step back in time, we've rediscovered, I haven't, a community in Italy has, France, America, there's this sort of application going on in some kind, we're not sure exactly, we definitely know 10,000 hectares in Europe, we presume more than 20 with the amount of people doing it and the peripheral communities that have come from it, but England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland is doing nothing. Nothing. For some reason we're in the mouth of the beast, all right? We're in the mouth of the wolf here in England, are we not? Do we all know that? We all know that, don't we? In Italy, they are in the house of the wolf. Here, we're in the jaws. We're in the jaws, aren't we? As it was expressed to me last night by a gentleman. And we've been held back. We've been held back far too long. We've been far too obedient. So we must catch up with the Italian community that has 15 years of evidential proof of increased yields, of increased soil biome, from 10% on average, which is what I'm testing our English soil at currently. We test it with an Orgo measuring device. We test 10% on average soil biome. It's no wonder we're all sick. With these applications, evidentially I've seen it with my own eyes. Absolutely, I tell you now, we can increase the soil biome within 3 to 5 years back to self-regenerative levels. So, knowing all that, do you believe me? Do you believe what I'm saying? Yeah? You believe it possible? Because if you do believe it possible, it's possible. Right? If you are the pessimist and you take on a project, you'll sabotage that. You'll infuse your pessimism into that silica and you'll sabotage your own results. So like every good gardener, like every good farmer always ever did, we love every time we place our feet on the ground, don't we? We love every time we put our hands in the dirt, every time we pick that potato, every time we take that sweet pea or that fresh bean. We love it, don't we? And we don't love the pests, do we? No? Would you believe me if I said, with this you'll change the frequency of your plants, you will remove and eradicate completely your pest cycles. We won't have that conversation. We don't have that conversation. We're not biodynamic farmers. We use the calendar, of course. But we're not biodynamic farmers. We're electroculture or energetics gardeners. We don't have pest conversations because they don't exist in our world. Do you believe that? It's real. It's real. I've seen it with my own eyes, saw it with my own project last year. I was the very first project in this country for some weird reason. But here I am, presenting what my colleague of some 7 years, he's been involved in this, he's Italian, Francesco. You might be fortunate enough to meet Francesco one day. And Charlotte, who's my other colleague. And he's been screaming from the rooftops for 7 years. He's let pulled his hair out completely. But here we are, we're doing it. It's not just about growing food. It's not just about that anymore. It's about rejuvenating the biome back to where it was and giving it those levels that it once had pre-industrialized revolution. Ancient oak forest floor soil biome levels. Who's put their hands in the floor under an ancient oak recently? Ever. Ever. We'll start with ever. But not so much recently, right? I found a very important site in Norfolk. I don't really think I should share it because it's very, very powerful. But if I said this, if I gave you a hint, an old man, he told me about it, and I trust him. When you think of Norfolk and the Iceni tribe in particular, you think of somebody, don't you? I'm pretty sure I know where she's buried. And I've found the oak, and the hairs are standing up, and I've sat under the oak, and I've put my hands in the soil. And I'm telling you now, when you go onto that site, there is a huge vortex for a start. You are in reverence to something. And I was definitely being watched, and I've been there 4 times. It's so powerful. And that's about 20 minutes from my home in Norfolk. And when we put our hands in that soil, we feel carbon, we see carbon, then we see a bit more rotted down carbon. And you get to about maybe here before you get the humus, the real soil, and then it's black. But you can put your hands in up to your second knuckles very easily. Not like in your local farm field, right, where it's all clayey and thick. And that is the soil that we're going to replicate with you. Okay, so the pretty English garden with the soil finish and no weeds, that's gone from your mind. It's gone, okay? Clean lines, clean corners, clean weed, gone. We're going to encourage the activate the herbs because that's what we call them now. We're going to ferment them wherever we can. We're going to make compost teas, definitely. And we're going to cover everything in carbon. We're going to give everything a duvet, okay? And that's going to moderate, and I'm sure a lot of us know this, it's going to moderate the temperature, it's going to moderate the moisture. It's never going to get too dry, it's never going to get too wet because of it. And the soil is completely different. Completely different. Not only the potato, the yield, the taste, the structure under a microscope, but the soil feels different. For example, my project last year, the electroculture plot, all I needed to use was my hand. The other control plot, I had to use a little hand shovel. I couldn't get deep enough, it was too claggy with just my hand. It's completely different, it's very wet. Whereas the real deal is like the ancient forest floor. So as Victor Schauberger said, one of the amazing rules of his, the soil never sees the sun. Everyone get that? Okay. So multiple fields of study, not rocket science. It is my goal, this is where I need your help, as I follow Mark around the country, as I do my bit to get this into the ground and making a difference this year. Because to be honest with you guys, there's 15 years of evidential proof in Italy and France. I am sick of seeing pictures of Italy. Okay? I've been twice in the last 6 months. Beautiful, but for some reason, us English folk, we're a bit stubborn. We don't travel without taking our culture, and we somehow don't see that an Italian cultivation is anything to do with us, do we? I kind of don't. I've seen it, and actually, I want to see it myself here in England. So we're 6 months in. There is some evidence from my project last year. There is some evidence already with anyone that started. Mark had massive changes on his farm starting in October last year, but sadly that's had to go. It's now got a new guardian looking after that project, and it's been split into about 7 different projects, which is wonderful, right? So he'll get babies from it, which is fabulous. I've got some of your garlic and potatoes going in on Monday, potatoes, with a new bokashi compost that I fermented with all this bacteria. There's some bacteria over there, guys. I was going to bring it, but it's just too many things to carry. And it was, it's fermented bacteria from energetic environments from southern Italy. It's so powerful. You've got to use it. You can't buy it on the shop shelves, guys. You cannot buy stuff this strong. It's so powerful. It's 10 times more potent than its cousin that you can buy on the shop shelves. Dr. Heger's EM1 recipe you may have come across. So, as I was saying before, I want to end on this. We need your help for those that are interested, those growers or farmers that are out there, however big or small, who want to help take on projects, tiny ones or actually big projects, to help us essentially showcase within the next 12 months that England can do this. That we can do this. That we're not just going to grow food and struggle. We're not going to struggle. We're not going to struggle. And I know it can be achieved. So I'm speaking to inordinate amounts of people now. My phone has just gone off its rocker this last week. It's really picked to a point where people are interested. So we can very easily give you kits, sell you kits, get you started. This is my bread and butter, by the way. This is my professional life as well as my spiritual. This is everything for me. This is a 5D business environment for me, and I love it. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And my wife is already telling me when I go on holiday in a few weeks, I can't use my phone. All right, I can't take my laptop. She put the phone down on me. I don't know what to say. It's not going to happen. I'll take a day off. I'll take an afternoon off, but there's too much to do because there's people coming in all the time. And I want some of you in this room to be some of those people that will take on some big stuff and help us roll this out. So what say I? What say you guys?
Yeah.
Give it a go, some of you? Yeah? Well, if you do want to give it a go, come and grab a card. If you're very, very keen, please don't waste my time. I've got too much to do. If you're very keen, I will write my private mobile number down for you. We can communicate. Best way to communicate with me is WhatsApp message me. Okay? Thereafter, there's some forms. There's only a few left over there, but I can send you them via email. Well, I will say it this way. Rather than me chase you, please chase me. Would you do that? And if you do ever write an email down for me, please make sure I can read it. Okay? Right, so I'm about to finish. Is there a room for a question? One question.
Make sure it's a good one.
Make sure it's a good one. Who's got a question? Anybody with a question?
Yes.
Andrew.
Sorry. Andrew, I was watching a programme a few months ago and fascinated by, they found some black soil in the Amazon rainforest. They've got no idea how they created it. It's very, very fertile. They think it's linked to the Mayans, and they try and grab it, and you can grow anything in it, but they've got no idea how it got there in the Amazon rainforest.
Yeah, we've heard about this. We've been talking about the Amazon a little bit, haven't we?
Biochar.
Yeah. So yeah, we believe pre-civilization, right? So there's ancient cities hidden under the ground there, we know. So there was we think the inside story that I've heard from communities in Italy, for example, are that it became over-fertile, extremely powerfully fertile. So arguably, if we could test that with my machine, I would argue it'd be upwards of 90% plus biome. It might be off the scale, who knows? It could be something superhuman, right? Or super earthly. But that's what we're maybe not talking about at that level. But what we are talking about is bringing back a biome that you might at least think, well, it's kind of near it, that is very potent. If you put your finger on my machine, you will read 75% on average. The soils and waters that I place on my machine are 10% on average. That tells me, that the life force energy in that soil is 10%, and the life force energy in us is 75. That means we've probably got 70 millivolts per cell in our cells, not 100. So we're hanging on in there, right? We can't be killed. We're doing pretty well, but we're on our arse. We really are. The soil is, okay? So for me, the soil, she's my mistress, she's my mother, she's my father. If I put my attention to her, she heals me. Finito. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Now, it's only the second speech he's done to an audience, so I think he did well tonight. Give him a round of applause, guys. Now, the next gentleman really needs knowing. No, I don't even need to say anything, do I? Andrew Bridgen, legend. Thank you, Mark.
Well, it's great to be back at the Riddings amongst friends. Most of you have heard me speak before, so I'm not going to give you the normal spiel. I've only got half an hour, so we'll talk about what's going on currently in our country and in our politics. I would say that it's a sign of how the mighty fall that tonight I'm Mark Barford, the bowler-hatted farmer's warm-up act. But I don't mind, because he was my warm-up act last night when we were speaking nearly in Burnley. In the last couple of weeks, you may have seen on my social media, I went to go and see Tommy Robinson in Wood Hill prison in Milton Keynes. It was fascinating because they made me sign a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't tell you anything about it. But Jeff Taylor, if you know him on YouTube, he is a journalist, but Jeff Taylor's not his real name, so he went under his real name to the prison. They never asked him to sign. They're not really that smart, are they? This week I went to go and see Alex Belfield, who's in Fosse Way prison in Leicester, not far away from where I live. I find it slightly worrying that 5 years ago I didn't know anybody in prison. But now I know quite a lot of people in prison. And the worrying thing is that Keir Starmer has given another 7% discount to the hardened criminals in our prisons to clear another 3,000 places, so he can put another 3,000 people who post hurty words on social media into prison, or threaten us with that this year. I think the state of our politics is absolutely lamentable. I mean, we haven't got a democracy. We have got a dictatorship with Starmer, with his stonking majority for a minority of the vote at the election. 32% of the vote, 60-odd% of all the MPs, and he's certainly delivering for his masters, and they are certainly not us. He's working for. You'll notice that after I was hoofed out of Parliament, despite the fact that the evidence of the vaccine harms ever increasing, the DNA content is confirmed across the world. You've got the Slovakian government carried out under the very brave Prime Minister Fico. It's spelt Fico, but it's pronounced Fico. The man who said he was going to, when he got into power, was going to have a full investigation into the corruption that happened in his country during the pandemic. The PPE scandal, he had the same as over here, the masking, the social distancing, and of course the safety and efficacy of the vaccines. And also he said he certainly wasn't going to be joining the WHO pandemic agreement, and then he got shot 4 times. A very, very brave man. He's back. He's announced that they're carrying out on a full investigation, and it was so damning for the vaccines that he got his minister, who's a doctor, put out an emergency statement 2 weeks ago, and he made a statement this week. All of this has been passed to Robert Kennedy at the in America, running Health in America. And I will remind you that when they threw me out of the Conservative Party in, I think it was April 2023, not one of my friends who I'd been in Parliament for 12 years contacted me to say they were sorry, or do you want to go for a drink or anything. Nobody. But within an hour of the announcement going out on BBC News, I got a phone call from a US presidential candidate on my mobile, and it was Robert Kennedy Jr., and he said, I'll stand with you, Andrew. And he's now in charge of health. And good people recruit good people. And I think we can all see that bad people recruit bad people. Robert Kennedy Jr. has recruited Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, a Stanford scientist, to be head of the National Institute for Health. That is the position that the appalling Anthony Fauci held for all those years and abused. And I'm in contact on a regular basis with Jay. I'm absolutely convinced that that he's going to suspend the mRNA platform in America. They will release the record level data they've got of doses, dates and deaths. They'll also produce the evidence of whether there's any link or not, and I think we all know there is, between autism and the childhood vaccine schedule. And that tsunami of truth will ripple across here, and it will be even the bias of our mainstream media. It will be impossible for them to ignore this information, and to be honest, who's listened to the mainstream media anyway? A couple of points going through our Parliament now. I mean, it's almost surreal. So we've got a government that announces that they're going to authorise £50 million worth of experiments with spraying in the air to dim the sun.
They've been doing it for 4 years.
And indeed. And this is because they've got winding. There's just so many people know that it's been going on for years that they realise. I mean, with the vaccines, they could at least say, well, we thought they were safe and effective. When you catch them spraying chemicals on you from the air, you know, what's the mitigation? There is no mitigation. So now they want the safety. But of course, it's all being pushed by Bill Gates. This is, you know, he's straight in there. And we've got the assisted dying bill, which will pretty quickly become the compulsory dying bill, the obligation to die bill. And again, that's as if it hasn't been going on in our hospitals to the vulnerable and the elderly since at least 2020 with NG 163. Pay attention, if you can, to the Derek Dimmock case. That's a family I've been helping for over 3 years. Derek went into a hospice for respite care. He got dementia, but he actually went in with gout, and he was put straight onto the death pathway and killed in 3 days. That has got 8 doctors and nurses up for unlawful killing. It was set for 5 days in London. I went to 2 of the hearing days for an inquest with a coroner's court. It was so important they've had to give it another 5 days. That will be the 11th to the 17th of August, and there are some world experts coming there to give evidence that he was involuntarily euthanized, and that's going to be an absolutely crucial case, and the best chance we've got of exposing what happened in the first wave of COVID-19 and the horrors that were inflicted on our vulnerable elderly in hospital. We've got something I've been speaking about for more than 2 years and warning the country, often as a lone voice in Parliament, the WHO Pandemic Treaty and amendments to the International Health Regulations. Even though Trump's pulled out, they still seem intent, and Ursula von der Leyen absolutely delighted to welcome this this fantastic landmark of this WHO pandemic treaty. So Ursula von der Leyen. So in the EU, thank God we're out of it. In the EU, you've got an unelected president of the European Union giving away the sovereignty of the people to an unelected, unaccountable, non-tax-paying, immune from prosecution Director General of the WHO. The power and authority is moving so far away from the people, it's out of sight. And we must try and resist Keir Starmer signing us up to giving your sovereignty away. We've got to get onto our MPs. We've got to get onto our MPs. And at the end of the day, we're not going to comply. And the they can't. Your sovereignty is your right. They can't give your rights away. You can't even give your rights away. We have rights. And of course, something else I've been talking about, which nobody wanted to hear about 2 years ago, the European Defence and Securities Union, which Keir Starmer is determined to sign this country up to. It was very clear reading his, the way they were talking about it. And the Conservatives are no better. They didn't want to talk about it. And when I said to 2 years ago to Nigel Farage, and said this is what's going to happen, whether Labour get in or not, we're going to be going. They're going to try and drag us into a European Defence and Securities Union, which will give control of our army, our navy, our air force, MI5, MI6, GCHQ, our nuclear deterrent, and shockingly, our local police forces under the control of the European Union. That's the deal. There's no other deal on the table. And Starmer has been trying to sell it as it's a security pact. That, but of course he'll say, and we're not going back in, we're not going back in. What country and what chance will we ever have of securing our borders if we don't even have control of our own police? I'll give you a little update on the Hancock case. That's some news in the last few weeks. That's now been going on for over 2 years. I'm taking him to court for defamation. He's tried 2 strikeouts in 2 years. That has delayed it by 18 months to get through those. He lost both of them. Lost one last Easter, and he lost one 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks last Monday. That was it announced, it was handed down. It's not really Matt Hancock I'm taking on. I'm taking on Big Pharma and the World Economic Forum. They're going to hold Matt Hancock up as their human shield until I've burned through him, because they know that I'm coming after them afterwards. And there's a little clique in here, and it's amazing. There's so many coincidences. So many coincidences. So Hancock's barrister is a man called Aidan Earley, King's Counsel. Just happens to be the same barrister that the government, Labour government, Attorney General used to put Tommy Robinson in prison. Yeah. This case has been going on for 2 years. I'm sure I shouldn't be nervous, but I mean, they just promoted last year Mr. Hancock's barrister, Aidan Earley, he's a barrister, as a part-time judge on the same bench as the judges who are sitting on the King's Bench on this case. So he will be having dinner with the judge who will decide. But despite that, we have seen him off. I've got an excellent barrister in Chris Newman. And even when you get the judgment, and I knew we'd won a couple of weeks ago, but until the judgment is handed down, I can't say anything. And then you have an order made to enforce the judgment. And that's where a lot of the horse trading goes on. Hancock's legal team tried to get the case going forward to be restricted by the court, that he could say that the evidence was that the vaccines are safe and effective, and my side, I would be banned from commenting and producing evidence that they're not safe and effective. And how did anyone think? That's what they actually tried to do. Hancock also tried to pick his judge for the case we just had, and he suggested, the other side suggested Judge Nicklin. I didn't know you could choose your own judges. It's called fishing for judges, and as far as I knew, it was illegal. But I mean, that's what they tried to do. And I only saw it off because I went on TV. You won't remember. I was on GB News for a fleeting interview with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates. We were talking about Tommy Robinson's situation. I was very critical of the judge who sent him down, because that was Judge Nicklin, the same judge, who obviously owes Aidan-Eley a favour because Aidan-Eley put Tommy in prison for breach of Nicklin's order. It's all a big club, and we're not in it, to be honest. But because I'd spoken on GB News, I was able to maintain to the court that I was extremely critical of Judge Nicklin's decision with regard to Tommy Robinson, and if were he to be the judge in this case, for me, it could have the appearance of bias, couldn't it? Just perhaps. So, what I can tell you is after 2 years, Hancock has not got a defence. He has not put in a defence of truth. That means he knows, he can't rely on the fact, he can't prove that what I said was anti-Semitic, so he knew that when he called me anti-Semitic, anti-vax, anti-scientific, racist, he knew it was not true. I'm not sure I'm not, to be honest. I'm not sure. I don't mind what they do, but they just keep it to themselves. But I don't see. And so Hancock has got he hasn't got a defence of truth. He's not gone with a defence of truth. He can now never maintain in the case that anything he said in his tweet was true. And also, his legal team have admitted that what he said was defamatory. So he's now admitted it's defamatory, calling me anti-Semitic, and it's not true. That doesn't leave him a lot of defence. That's why he's gone for 2 strikeouts and failed. He could have settled that case originally for less money than he lost in court for that one day last month. His costs were 80,000. Mine were 33, and the way the court are putting pressure on me is they only gave me a cost award of 18,000 from Hancock, even though he lost on all points. It's not a level playing field, but what I'm looking forward to, and what Mr. Hancock will not be looking forward to, is him being in a witness box, being asked questions about the safety and efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccines, possibly before Christmas in the final hearing, being questioned by my barrister the questions that I want to ask, and I'm very convinced that before Christmas, Robert Kennedy Jr. and Jay Bhattacharya, 2 excellent people, will have fully exposed what went on during COVID, and that's going to be very, very uncomfortable for Mr. Hancock and a lot more cowardly politicians who knew what was going on and failed to protect the public. And I will give you a final piece of news that I'm pleased to say I'm going down to meet with Rupert Lowe on Monday in Parliament. Mark, how's my time looking? Have we got time
10
for...
minutes. 10 minutes.
Okay, questions. 10 minutes of questions. Hands up. Don't be shy.
Can I ask you a question? You mentioned about Hancock. Will he also be questioned about his massive order of midazolam? Morphine?
Midazolam and morphine. Yeah, well, I'm hoping that I'm hoping that the Derek Dimmock case will expose that. I'm surprised the Americans. I mean, it was midazolam that was used to create the first wave of COVID deaths and scare us all into taking an untested vaccine. It was midazolam in the UK, it was midazolam in Ireland, it was midazolam in Portugal, and it was midazolam in Australia and New Zealand, I think. But a lot of the rest of the world, it was remdesivir, and they used a different chemical drug in France, which I'm not quite sure what it was, because they sold us all of their midazolam, including all the out-of-date stuff, which they didn't mind. So I'm hoping so. The Dimmock case can expose all of that.
What about the PPE?
The PPE, well, that was just your common or garden fraud, wasn't it? So I mean, they bought a load of it from their mates. A load of it was
probably rags anyway and no use. A lot of it was out of date and not suitable. And then they stored it in a warehouse for about a year, and it was costing millions to store it. And so then they decided to burn it all. So they burnt the evidence, and it's going to be very hard to prove. Once they burnt the PPE, which they've now paid for it. I mean, and I was in business for 22 years, and you don't accept goods into the factory until they've been quality controlled, and you certainly don't pay for them before you've approved that what I've bought is what you're sending me. I mean, what sort of business? If you want to, I found out from a whistleblower. This is during COVID. There was a very helpful civil servant, and there are some good people in the civil service, and he was working in the track and trace. I think that was 47 billion pounds up the wall, with nothing to show for it. A lot of it was spent on consultants, and they didn't leave any reports. Which basically means if we had another pandemic and they wanted to do track and trace again, they haven't got like a manual that they've paid for. There is nothing. The money's just gone. And this civil servant, you can always tell when the civil service are nervous about things because they rotate people through every 3 or 4 months. So that when it hits the fan at the end, they'll say, well, no one was really there in the department long enough to take any responsibility. That's always what they do. And they were going through track and trace. The average duration was about 4 months for a civil servant. So they were banging them all through. By the time they'd learnt where the coffee machine was and where to put the coat, they were out of the department and no one's really to blame. Anyway, my contact was there, and he was working in the different channels, and he was working in the ones that were the bulk PCR tests, COVID testing. So it was schools, hospitals, universities, prisons, boxes of more than 50, so not the ones to the households, the testing, but bigger ones. And he said that there was you sent them out, and then there was a company that went round and collected them from these schools or prisons twice a week, and schools were doing testing twice a week apparently, and this firm went and fetched them, and they were getting something like, say, £300 for a collection of this box, which would be the used tests just put back into a cardboard box and then taken to a laboratory. £300 per collection. He said, but if it doesn't get collected by 5 o'clock, they get £1,200 for an out-of-hours collection. He said, Andrew, they're given the out-of-hours collection contract to the same firm who've got the in-hours collection. He said, and I've just analysed it, only 51% of the collections are made before 5 o'clock. And I rang Hancock up and I said, what sort of moron would give... I thought, you weren't in business, were you, Matt? What sort of moron would give the contract for £300 to collect it as long as it's collected before 5 o'clock? And if there's a problem and it's not collected by 5 o'clock, you reward them by giving them £1,200 for an out of hours. And then you wonder why only half of them ever get collected on time. And the whole thing was an absolute racket from beginning to end. And what I will tell you as well is there were whole lorry loads of tests, PCR tests, that were supposedly on stock in Kuehne Nagel's warehouse, because they were the distributor for the NHS, that just disappeared. And we traced some, because they all had barcodes on them, didn't they? And myself and this civil servant, we traced some of them. They just disappeared. They were on their computers 1 minute and then they were gone. Whole lorry loads. And he chased it back, and during COVID, it was something like £300 million worth of PCR tests had disappeared. Well, anyone who works in logistics, and I was a qualified transport manager, everything's scanned in and scanned out with barcodes. Nothing disappears unless the lorry turns over on the M1 and sets fire and the whole load's burnt up. Nothing disappears anymore. Can't do. And those PCR tests, which, well, let's face it, they were rubbish anyway, but you paid for them as a taxpayer. Anyway, they turned up in Berlin. They've been resold, haven't they? Been resold. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're about... lady.
Thank you, Andrew. We're hearing very much that the Doge Squad in America has uncovered US aid,
Yeah,
as in a government department, and we've got the equivalent UK aid.
yeah.
Who is doing anything about investigating that in the UK? Are you aware of?
Well, they won't because they're all guilty, aren't they? 'Cause I mean, which government wouldn't? Which government who wanted the best for the people anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, wouldn't have a Department of Government Efficiency which would look into all this waste? Well, I mean, anyone who's not looking into the waste, they don't want to. On the US aid, you may have seen that over a year ago, I went to the government and exposed the child trafficking from Ukraine into the UK. It was the two Secret Service, Ukrainian Secret Service officers had given us the data. They were collecting the Ukrainian Secret Service were collecting the kids, mostly Russians, ethnic Russians from the Donbass, shipping them out to over here. The company that was in the data, I gave to the government, we gave to the National Crime Agency, MI5, and Gloucestershire Police, that was, we believe, was laundering the money and dealing everything. There's a company called Comonix. It's a worldwide company. It's the biggest recipient of USAID money in the world. I believe they were running all the child trafficking all around the world, all paid for by the American taxpayer.
Well, I bet that information went missing.
And one of the, and they never acted on it. And one of the payments from USAID to Comonix was $6 billion in one payment. $6 billion. I think shutting that den of iniquity down is one thing, but now they've got to get in there and find out what they're actually doing, and it will horrify what was being paid for around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to win. I've decided. And remember that the darker it gets, the nearer we are to the end. And it's going to get a bit darker yet, but we are going to get there. Go on. One more.
Andrew, you're speaking in the States next weekend. Is that an indication of perhaps that you may be under a little bit of favour there, and maybe what you can share what you are actually speaking about the next weekend?
I'm afraid I've had to cancel my trip to the States. I will speak virtually to the States, to them in Florida, but there's too much going on over here. I need to sort some things out with Rupert and Ben in the next week or so. Things are going to move forward quite quickly, and we're going to have a real option moving forward. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Andrew, thank you. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break. So if anyone wants to join or the beer, don't forget to give this man a tip over here and go and see Andrew for his phone numbers, and we'll see you back in 10 minutes.
That'll go through and make, I think. You got one.
Yeah.
And we need to be self-sufficient. We are
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Are we ready? Hello? Come and join me when you're ready.
Do a Richard Bolt.
I was with Richard last night. He's brilliant. Okay. Firstly, can we get a round of applause for the first two speakers? Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to take you on a little journey now around the country, because a lot of you will know that we've been visiting various parts of the country over the last, I think we're on 8 weeks now, and we've got another 16 weeks to go. And every time we just think we're getting to the end of the booking, someone else books another one. So, one of the things, young lady. Is your mic on? What's the technical now? Hello? Hello? That's okay. Thank you. How bothered would we have got if the young lady hadn't spoken? Okay, so we're on this journey, Gloria and myself, and we are heading round the UK talking about food. And pretty fair to understand that there is an issue with these three things. If there is no farmers, there is no food, and without any food, we definitely don't have any freedom. We all know where they're trying to get us to. I definitely ain't taking part. I've looked at the bugs, I ain't having none of that. I've looked at synthetic meat, I definitely ain't having none of that. And, you know, as we drift through life and we come out with some experience, we start to understand how stacked up it is against us. Now, one of the things which we have witnessed going around the country is, whilst we're trying to get farmers to attend these meetings, is there any farmers in the room tonight? Okay. Two. Now, as we're going around the country, we don't get very many farmers come to the talks. And that surprises me not. And I'll tell you why. I believe that by 2030, we will only have 20% of the farmers left in farming. And you can go, that's a little concerning. Okay, so tonight I'm going to take you to a different side of that and the positive side of it. Okay? Because if someone's in a position as a farmer that they get offered £300,000 to sell their farm, bear in mind that's not the money for the farm, that's just a bonus. They get the £300,000 as a get out of farming payment. Do you blame them? No. Now, what we're seeing as we're travelling around the country, and Gloria will testify to this, we're seeing a massive movement of people that are buying land to get into farming. Now, for those that do or don't know, if you follow me on social media, if you don't, we have set up a CIC. We've set up the Food Finders Hub, for those who know. The Food Finders Hub came out of a conversation between a friend and I, and we set up the website foodfindershub.org. Okay, it's changed its domain purposely. So it's set up to take into account farmers that want to sell to the public, and when I say farmers, I also include things like the veg box scheme that are advertised at the back of the room. If anybody's local and they're looking for really good quality organic veg groceries delivered to their door, talk to the guys at the back of the room, because that's what I want to talk about tonight, okay? We've noticed, travelling around the country, that the people that are getting into farming have no expectations about subsidies. They have no understanding of farming, but what they do have is an understanding of wanting to feed you guys. Now, what I think is going to happen is the fact that we're going to lose a lot of farmers. The people coming into the system are going to need a lot of assistance, and that's where we all come in. And I include myself in that because, as most of you will know, I'm no longer on the farm, so I've got a sabbatical. I'm out until the end of October, and I believe that in between now and October, something amazing is going to happen. Adversity equals opportunity. And for me, I believe that some opportunity is going to present itself for me to do somewhere in the country. As long as it's in driving distance of me and mum, it'll be alright. Now, Gloria will testify to this. We've done a fair part of the country. We drove right down to Land's End, and I mean right down to Land's End, in a camper van that was 39 years old, that I bought for £1,250. And I crashed my car, the insurance company didn't pay out what it was worth, and I thought, well, if I buy another car, the problem is where we're going to sleep. If we end up with a night or two where we don't get anyone to put us up, and mostly, and there's some of the faces in the room tonight that have kindly put us up, or that have kindly organised events for us, or have kindly donated to the tour, if it wasn't for those people, I wouldn't be here. So, for me, to be here is thank you to you guys. Now, what we're witnessing along the way, I thought was going to be loads and loads of farmers wanting to come out and talk to us and say, yeah. No. Now, we have spoken to a lot of farmers and interviewed quite a lot of farmers, but we've got two types of farmers. The farmers that are going, I've had a gutful, I've had enough, I'm going to take the money and I'm going. And there's a lot of them. And when you sit down and understand the bullshit, excuse my French, but it is bullshit, what's going on at governmental level, and you understand it ain't even our government was pulling the strings, and you understand just how bad the situation has got for them people who are centuries deep in running farms, centuries deep in living on that land, passionate about what they do, are that broken they don't want to continue. But then there's the other side of the farmers. And while we were down in Truro, we got down to Exeter, and we were heading to Truro, down in Cornwall, and got a phone call to say the event was cancelled down in Truro. And I thought, well, we've got 3 days. So I messaged the girl and I said, listen, is it okay, Joe, if we still come? She said, yeah, of course it is. I said, cracking. So we got as far as Exeter to do an interview with a farmer who'd forgotten we were going, who was busy on the farm, and he'd forgot he was putting us up for the night. So I just said to Gloria, don't worry, we'll head straight to Joe's. The problem was we couldn't get hold of Joe. So we sat in the Tesco's car park, and I posted on Farmers to Action's WhatsApp group, is there anyone in the Truro area who can give us somewhere to park up for the night? And within minutes we've got a call from a guy, Erwin, who kindly put us up for the night. Now, the next morning, and this is when I talk about the difference in farmers and farmers. So Erwin took us on a whistleblower tour of his farm. Now, everything I disagree with in farming sits in big farms. And this guy's got a big dairy farm, 500 cattle that they're milking. However, I came out of there really, really impressed. And I put some posts up on Facebook about it. And after I'd had a row with a few vegans about my comments, because I do like to upset them. Well, no, actually, they like to upset themselves. The initiatives they're using on the farm are just mind-blowing. And one of them, which really tickled me, was the fact that they put solar panels on the farm, on the roofs, not on farmland, right? They put the solar panels in, but couldn't connect it to the grid. So anything they'd got over was going to waste. So I said, well, that's a shame. He said, well, that's what we thought. He said that rather than running freezers that keep the milk chilled, we've got an ice making machine, and all the spare solar goes into producing ice that chills the milk when it comes out of the dairy. genius, big tick, massive savings. And then when we went through the main food place, they'd got these blue lines down the side of where the cows get through the fence to get the hay, and I was like, what you got blue lines for? And he said, when cows eat, they saliva, and it eats up the concrete. He said, so they don't eat the concrete dust. He said, we put these blue lines down. He said, and that enables, that seal allows them to eat straight off the floor. And I thought, this is someone who not only wants to do his job, he understands his job. And there was just so many things on the farm that I was like, that makes a lot of sense, that's really good. You know, while I come away and shook his hand and said, this isn't how I think farming should be, I still had to agree it was a good way forward, because the dairy industry is one of the ones that's getting slaughtered to the ground. And that's something that, you know, these guys are going to have to make a difference with. Now, we then went to see another guy the next day called James. Now, James was lovely. Ex-forces guy, went back to the family farm, went home and said, we need to get out of dairy. Much to his dad's disgust, who's obviously the farmer, and his brother, who's been running the farm while he's been away. And he said, we need to get out of dairy. There's no money in it. They've got a herd of Dexter cows instead. Now, I don't like Dexter cows because I used to have one called Daisy, and she thought she was a show jumping horse, and it don't matter what field I put her in, she got out every night. She charged police cars, ran at police helicopters, you name it, she was good at it, right? You can understand where she was coming from. So, they've got a herd of Dexter cows, and they run them over. Has anyone heard of like Lays? You hear a lot about Lays grass. So the government pays the farmers to grow the grass, okay, and it's really rich in nitrogen and so on. And talking to the farmer, he was saying, oh, well, it's really good if we grow these particular things. Okay, why? Because that one's got a slightly longer root on it, so it draws the carbon further down in the ground, takes the goodness down. Oh, okay. And as I got talking to him, he said, yeah, and then the next thing we're doing, he said, when the herd of Dexter's goes through the field, we've got some free-range hens that come through behind them. So, of course, chickens come through and they scrap all the cow dung about, and they eat the bugs and the flies that are there, and they eat. They get really good nutritious food. They eat the grass lower, because Dexter's will take it down to about 4 inches. Chickens will take it down to 1 inch. So the grass gets a good cut, it's well fertilised, and they get really good quality chickens and dairy and the beef at the back of it. Then we went to another guy, and this guy is now changing over to what I deem as the new style of farming. Now for me, the new style of farming is very much about using these. Not big commercial tractors, smashing the ground. Rory and I were going around the back of Bury St Edmunds, where we come from, and we came to a point in the village where the roads are all flooded, and they'd been sugar beeting. And the sugar beet harvester, with the sugar beet loaded, weighs about 80 tonne, and the ground was mullered. It was so compact that the water couldn't go anywhere. That's no good. That's the reason farmers get a massive amount of abuse about nitrogen runoff. Because you put your nitrogen on the ground and then it rains and it can't go into the ground. So the only place it can go is into land, into the drains, back into the water system. It doesn't do any good in the ground. So these farmers are starting to look at this stuff and starting to address how they can get a better result. So he was growing everything how I do. So how I farm, and Andrew will testify to this, he came out and set this up with me, I grow on long strips. So you put your compost down, and then next to it you put wood chip, compost, wood chip, and you work on the beds. Now, most farmers will produce wheat at about 4.2 tonne an acre. It earns £40 a tonne after they've paid for the nitrogen and the glyphosate. Okay? So they can earn about £160 an acre of land. You need a massive amount of land to pay for a £300,000 tractor. it does not stack up. Now, for me, I can grow 40 tonne of food easily on an acre just growing vegetables. The problem with wheat and barley, and like where we come from in East Anglia, and Andrew can tell you this as well, that we grow commodity crops: wheat, barley, oats, sugar beet, rye, rape. We don't grow anything you eat. You can't go out to any of our fields and just pick some food to eat something. We don't produce any animals. The village I grew up in had 7 farms that had animals on. Grandad, 500 cows. Butchers, 300 cows. Terry Clements and Gerald Clements, 10,000 pigs. The Farrer family, 3,000 pigs. The Dushanes, 5,000 pigs. And I never remember the other guy's name, but he chickens, turkeys, ducks and geese and everything else. Now we've got one woman's got 1 donkey. And she won't let me eat it. So we're on a very, very changing landscape for farmers. And it isn't looking very good for the farmers that are in. Now what we've got to do is make a decision as members of the public what it is we want to eat. Gloria, may I borrow you, darling? Now, I'm going to ask a favour of the room, and there's a reason I do this, and I do this at every solitary event. If you don't want your face to be shown when I do this, go like that, right? Because it's important I get this photograph, and I'll tell you why. So I'm going to ask you one question, and you will all put your hands up, I'm sure. And when I ask this question, I'm going to break this into 2 sections. So, if I asked you the question of would you like to buy food from a farmer directly, that could be directly as in from a box scheme like the guys at the back, that could be from a food hub, that could be from a farm shop, but when I say from a farmer direct, you get the gist. What I don't want to encourage anyone to do, and I do mean this, don't encourage anyone to spend money in supermarkets. They are vile, and they are the reason we are now losing all of our farmers. So, I'm going to ask you one question. The question is, if you could, would you buy chemical-free food, not organic, chemical-free food, direct from a farmer? Show of hands, please. All good? Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Now, the reason I get this picture at every event is on all of the WhatsApp groups and all the Facebook groups that of the farmers that I belong to, I keep posting the pictures. So tomorrow I will put on social media, interesting, we're in the, in Derbyshire last night, and everyone in the room wanted chemical-free food direct from a farmer. Now, when I first did it, for the first 4 or 5 times, everyone eventually said, Mark, we get the picture. Yeah. What is it you want us to do? I want you to look at this. What do people want? And when are you going to give it to them? Because the problem is, Nitram and glyphosate are not good things. People tell me I'm allergic to gluten. You're not, probably. You are probably allergic to the glyphosate changing the protein in the wheat, and that's what you're allergic to. There's so many chemicals pumped on fields that you don't know about. Everyone knows about, chucking nitrogen on to make things grow and chucking glyphosate on to kill the weeds. There's about another 50 you don't know about. We are the only people who can make a decision here. Now, one of the things which I suggest to people, but I'll ask the question first. Has anyone in the room, apart from Andrew Bridgen, because he doesn't count if you wrote to him, right? Because he probably would have replied. Has anyone written to their MP and got the response what you thought you should have got? Not what you expected to get, what you thought you really should have got. Has anyone actually had that happen? No. Interesting. No. Now, one of the things which I suggest to people is, in your area, write to a local farmer, find out who they are, and write to your local farmer. Ask them the question: do you produce anything on the farm that you sell directly to the public? And if so, how do I get hold of it? We either collectively, as the public of this country, help them, or they're not going to be here. That's a choice we have to make. They're fighting the cause every day. A friend of mine posted on social media today, and they run a pig farm just outside Bury St Edmunds and run a lovely little farm shop, and they posted on today that rather than putting prices up, they're going to work on less, and they're putting their prices down 10% to help the public. And I thought, cracking idea. Now this couple are lovely. They're a real, genuine, their ancestry lines go back in their farming. You know, the son is desperate to take over the farm, and dad's desperate to hang on to it, to hand it over. And I posted it, and it had about 50 shares, I think. But one of them was Gareth Wyn Jones. And I mentioned Gareth in a video earlier that I'd done about coming here tonight, because Gareth has about 3 million followers on social media. He's a really nice guy. I speak to Gareth often. And he's just one of the people who's taken the time to really understand what's going on. And a lot of people say to me, he doesn't seem very awake. He is. Like a lot more people, and a lot more people are very fearful about saying anything because they're terrified what will happen to them and their farm. And the reason I say that is because farmers are getting victimised and picked off individually, one at a time, because of what's going on. Okay? Now, as we travelled down to West Country, we visited loads of places. We've come across some absolutely beautiful places down there, farm shops that I didn't even think existed. We went to Gloria tell you, we went to this one just outside Somerton, down in Somerset, and the guy we were staying with said, it's a lovely little farm shop down there, and we went along and got a lovely little shed full of vegetables, all produced on site. Loads of lovely meat, all produced on site. Dairy from the farm next door. And I was like, how hard is it really for us to go back a step to go down that road? And the farmers tell me, oh, that doesn't work. The farmers tell me, nobody wants that anymore. Well, I don't think that's right, because every town we visit, there's a load of hands go up saying that's exactly what they want. Now, I understand from the farming point of view, coming from a farming background, I understand what they're up against, and they are terrified. And I genuinely mean that. See, the problem is, if you have been given the gauntlet to take on the family farm that's already gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 generations, and you're looking at it going, if I don't sell it, I'm going to lose it, and if I lose it, I can't hand it on, and that is putting people at a suicidal point. We've got to change that, and that's only going to change by people standing up. You know, I'll be the first one to say grab your pitchforks, but apparently that's only allowed to dig these days. You're not allowed to grab your pitchfork, and you mustn't suggest it, otherwise, as Andrew said, Mr. Starn would probably have me in one of those spaces he's creating. So, where do we go from here, guys? Is the question, because we're touring the entirety of the UK. We've done the Land's End section now. We've got to here. I thought I was going down to Doncaster tomorrow, and someone's just told me apparently I'm going up. But we're doing the whole of the UK, and we've still got some dates if anyone wants to still put one in. We are going to end up in Cumbria, and then we jump to Northern Ireland before we go up to John O'Groats. We've got people coming out of the woodwork all over the place. We've got a guy we're going to meet on a 400-acre organic farm just outside Merseyside. I had a guy ring the other day from just up above Newcastle, so we're going to be staying with Dave when we go up to see them. And this guy's got 1,000 cows he's milking, all organic. I mean, that is unheard of, them kind of levels. And Do you know what the guy said to me? He said, you know the problem, don't you? I said, what's that? He said, I ain't got enough cows. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, if I had 2,000 cows, I could probably, in some way, shape or form, keep up with the orders. That says to me that the farmers who are getting 46 pence a litre supplying supermarkets are going down the wrong road. So, but they're so entrenched in the system, and a lot of them, the problem is that they've taken millions in investment from the supermarkets, and I mean millions, to put in new sheds, new parlours, everything, right? That they then end up with a problem that they're so tied in they don't know how to get out. I don't know if anyone's seen the video, it was Gareth Wyn Jones who posted this week, I shared it out, that Muller, in their wisdom in the last 2 weeks, have decided they haven't collected any milk from a lot of their farms, so it's going down the drain. Now Muller haven't even had the courtesy to contact the farmers to tell them why they haven't collected it, when they're going to collect it, if they're going to collect it, or if they're going to pay them for collecting it. Now work this out. At 46 pence a litre, some of these smaller farms even produce 1,000 litres twice a day, right? So you can look at us about 1,000 quid's worth of milk a day, they're sticking down the drain. They're 2 weeks in and Muller still hasn't given them an answer. How many businesses do you know could stand to lose £1,000 a day and still expect to be there? Can you now see why these farmers are going, this is my get out of jail card, I'll take the 300 grand, sell the farm, sell the kit, walk away.
Well, because it's a tax write-off.
But is that an implication of the fact that Muller are involved in the Beauvais scheme?
Interesting. Now, when the Beauvais thing came out, I was one of the first ones. I spoke to Tim from Pro Farming, and I said, "Here, Tim," I said, "I've got a bit of a twist on this." I said, "I don't think that they accidentally leaked this information. I think they did it on purpose to deliberately trash the dairy industry." Right? Now, bear in mind that Arla owns 72%, I think it's about 72% of all the dairy industry in the UK is under Arla. All the milk from all the different farms goes to Arla. Why would anyone in their right mind sign a death warrant on their own business when they control 70% of the market? Well, imagine what it's worth. So, who paid them to do that? Andrew Ross said it, follow the money. I guarantee you'll come back to the WEF, those in control of it, every time. Now for Arla, it doesn't actually make any difference, because if they don't sell real milk, they can sell pretend milk. I don't know if you've ever tried to milk an almond, but it's quite difficult. Oat milk, almond milk, coconut milk. All of these different synthetic milks. And this is where we're going. They don't care if they trash their industry. They don't have a clue about how they'll do things in the future. You'll get maggot milk. They don't care. I do. Whole reason I'm on this tour is because of my kids and grandkids. That's it. I'm 57. I've had a cracking innings. Genuinely cracking innings. I've left the farm twice. Cool. Seriously, twice I left the farm. Left the village. And now we're on tour. Going around the UK. Meeting all these lovely people. At some point, there has to be a decision made by us. And for me, my decision was, a few months ago, was, okay, if I've got to go from the farm, then what the hell am I going to do? And Ray, who owned the farm, said, before he died, he said, I said, I've been thinking about doing this tour. And he went, you should. I said, I might go and talk to more people. He said, you should. So here we are. Travelling around the country, meeting lovely people, talking to farmers, interviewing farmers, understanding why they want to get out, understanding why new ones want to get in. And that's the bit that really excites me. The ones that want to come into the industry. Especially when you look at it and you think to yourself, if you were looking at an industry which has been desecrated by the government, would you want to get into it? these people want to get in because they want to produce food. They want to involve the community. They want to be in the position of making a difference. And that's what this is all about. For me, the tour, you know, we're going to get to John O'Groats at some point, probably in September. I hope. Now, for me, at 57, I've made a decision that it's time for me to put my big boy pants on, right? And I would suggest to anyone in the room, you know, when you talk to people like Andrew, who has been very fecking brave, you know, people say to me, well, you're ever so brave, and I think, oh, I ain't, he is, right? He's been really brave. For Andy, over the back who spoke first, the electroculture side, we all know is, shh, you mustn't talk about that because free energy. Can't be having that. That's why the technology is 120 years old and they still don't know about it. And let's be honest, that was when they were doing big things with it 120 years ago. So how old was it? Everyone has a place to play in this jigsaw puzzle. If we are going to stop the rot, and it is rot, this woke nonsense trash, what is being taught in the schools. We were in Burnley last night, and there was a lass I've seen her speak once before, Victoria, who's a midwife. She made me cry first time I heard her speak, and because she was talking about what goes on in the NHS. And when I was looking at how we were going to put tonight together, and you know, Andy obviously coming to talk about electroculture, me talking about the farming, Andrew coming to talk about predominantly about the health side of things, they're all connected. Everything, what is wrong with this country at the minute is connected. So for me, the bit what leads me nicely in to introduce David is the fact that everything in this country what is wrong, and I'm one of the first ones for years who hasn't voted and said along the way I don't want to vote because I don't want to be part of the system. Well, I've come to the conclusion, guys, probably like a lot more people, you can kick it as hard as you like, right? It needs dealing with from the inside out. What they've done in America, and as Andrew rightly said, you know, what they've achieved with Doge is amazing. What we've got to do at the next general election is make a difference. And I mean a huge difference. Which gives me the opportunity to introduce Dave Baggett. To talk about farmers, food and freedom. Guys, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. The reason for the bowler hat, okay, is because I've worked with Mark before, and we were, where were we? Wellingborough. And I'd seen a bowler hat in a shop, and he said, you want one really, don't you? You really want a bowler hat. And I rushed back to this shop, and it was in Derbyshire, in that road, and it didn't fit. I got there at 5 minutes to 5, ran to the back of the shop, and the bowler hat didn't fit. So anyway, I bought one on eBay, and it fits. Right, quick introduction of me and why I'm here and what this is all about, what Farmers Food and Freedom is all about. I'm 68, I know I don't look it, but I'm 68, brought up on a farm, dairy farm. We had 80 cows when I was a kid. I used to get up with my dad and look before I went to school, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. And when I was 16, I went through probably what the farmers are going through now that Mark's explained. My dad said to me, back to school, son, go to school, get an education. Went to school, got an education. What I wanted to do was farm and drive a tractor. That's all I wanted to do. And then he says, well done, son, got your O-levels, got your A-levels. I found you a place at university. Get yourself to university, get a degree. So I went to Newcastle University and they did a degree in agricultural engineering. So I became an agricultural engineer, in fact, Bachelor of Science with honours. I thought, he's got to be impressed with this. How can he even use it on the farm? So I went home and he said, well, son, the next step, you've got to go and see the world at somebody else's expense. And I thought, I just want to drive a tractor. So anyway, got a job. I was the youngest engineer, graduate engineer that Flymore Manufacturing in Aycliffe had ever had. I got my first patent at 26 with Flymore for the air cushion mower, the Flymore that collects the grass. That's mine. Then I went on through my life working in heavy industry. I worked in the compressed air industry. I used to go home every weekend to farm. I used to take my holidays and drive a combine. Loved it. No matter where I was in the world, I'd come home to combine. How sad is that? But it was one hell of a life, and I loved it. I met one guy, and he said to me, I hate public speaking, by the way, unaccustomed as I am to public speaking. And he says, one day, somebody will say something that triggers you, and you'll stand up on your hind legs, and you'll just start to talk to the audience. So, you're getting it now. Anyway, I worked all over the world. I even worked in Derbyshire. And I had worked in the northeast of England, and for the biggest supply company to Nissan, I was actually the engineering director of a company called Akira Hoover, and we supplied all the interiors for Nissan. And when I left that company in 1996, Nissan cars had 98% local content. Local content means made in England, right? 98%. Most of that was made in the northern region. The only bit of the car that I didn't understand was the fabric. I know this has got nothing to do with farmers' food and freedom, but it all makes sense. So, I knew the only bit of the car I didn't understand was the fabric on the seats. And it's the most important bit, because when you open your car door, the fabric's on the seat and you see it, and you either love it or you hate it. It's also on the door pads and on various other bits of the car. So I came down here to work in Derbyshire for Guildford Europe in Alfreton. And boy, did that change my life. I stayed down here for 2 years, bought a house down here, and I love it down here. Still fun. But I was approached by my previous company, and they wanted to send me to China. This was in 1998, to teach the Chinese how to put interiors into cars. I know you all think I'm probably a pretty bad man now, but at the time I loved it. So I was in China for 12 and a half years working for different companies, and at vice president level, at high level in the company. I had 3,000 Chinese working for me at one stage. And boy, did we build bits for cars like you can't imagine. Not sweatshops, good quality parts. Some of the parts did come back to the UK, but only when the UK or the German tooling broke down. That's the only time I would ship them. I wouldn't ship anything from China back to the UK, the car industry, because I left the car industry strong, and that's the way I wanted it to remain. I came back to the UK, I missed all of the Tony Blair years. I was away.
Oh, you lucky devil.
I hate that man, and you're about to find out why. I came back, having spent my life, a big chunk of my life, living in Shanghai. I knew Shanghai like the back of my hand. It's 47k across Shanghai. So, I knew that place. I can speak Mandarin. If you can speak Geordie in Mandarin, you can talk to 98% of the world. So, anyway. I finally came back after 12 years. That's one full cycle. In China, for every year you're an animal. You can be a snake. I'm actually a monkey, which means a bit mischievous and naughty. So anyway, I came back to the UK and walked around Newcastle, my hometown, scared the living daylights out of me. There was cameras everywhere. I felt I was being watched all the time. I didn't know what the hell had happened. Nothing was like this in Shanghai. I don't know what it's like now. I haven't been to Shanghai for about 8 years. But I was shocked and stunned. And the people that I worked with didn't really want to work. They turned up, but they didn't really want to work. The spirit, the craziness, the madness wasn't there. There was no passion. So I thought, well, what the hell is going on here? What's happened? What's Blair done? So anyway, I thought, right, automotive, what's going on in automotive? So contacted my mates in Nissan and said, what's the logo content now on a Nissan Qashqai? Can anybody guess what it was? As I said before, 1998, it was 98%.
40%.
It was actually 15%. 15%. Now, I knew that business hadn't come to China because I was in China watching everything. And Nissan were up to, I was supplying the same parts in China. So, I knew. And when you check, Tony Blair had shipped it out to most of Europe and the Visegrad. You know? He had took all of those good jobs. We had trained kids in the northeast, and Robert did the same, right across the UK. Ford were good at it as well. We trained kids to design bits for cars. All of that's gone. They became warehouses, right? So I was bloody angry, and I got into politics. And I rejoined the Conservative Party. I know. And I became agent. Well, I got kicked out of the Conservative Party soon after I joined because I actually wrote to Theresa May and called her a bloody traitor, which is what she is. Got kicked out of the party, and then we get pretty close to 2019. There's another election coming up, and I was asked to rejoin. And I said, it's not that easy. I got kicked out for calling the leader a traitor, you know. And it was a great politician who I've got a lot of respect for. It wasn't Andrew, it was another one. And it was a Welsh guy, whose name I'm not going to tell you. And anyway, he got me back in the party. The party made me agent for Northwest Durham. Northwest Durham had been controlled by the Labour Party for 103 years, right? And I got a candidate pushed on me from CCHQ, Richard Holden, and helped to make him, he became chairman of the party, helped to make him an MP, and then COVID struck. And at the time, I was chairman of the party up there, and I was also working for Richard 1 day a week. I actually worked for 7 days a week, don't get paid off the government for one, but who cares? I was involved with the rollout of the COVID response manual. And it was happening, and it was happening, and it was happening. We were sending data out to doctor surgeries, to local schools, to businesses, all going well. Boris Johnson had a meeting with Bill Gates. Right? And a week later, guess what happened? No more bits of paper came from Westminster. It all stopped. And that was the start. Then I realised something's not right here. And a number of things happened, and CCHQ and Richard Holden threw me under the bus. I hadn't done anything wrong, Richard Holden actually had. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. I learned an awful lot fast. My next political activity was incredibly stupid, but again, I learned an awful lot. Man sitting over there with a brown jacket on needed an agent. I've been an agent, so I can do this. If he needs me, I'll do it. So I became Andrew's agent. And Andrew said to me, you've worked out how bad it is in Westminster. But when you finally get in there and you see it firsthand, you won't believe it. Okay? I believed it, and I've seen what they put him through, and it's not right. Right? Not right. We were at a farmers' meeting, Liz, Andrew, the rest of us, we were there. And Bev Turner was there. And Bev was talking to Andrew, and I got a photograph with her. And I says, I'm David, I'm Andrew's agent. And she turns to Andrew and says, Andrew, what do you want an agent for? He says, oh, he goes to jail instead of me. And she says, I think I need one. So anyway, I learned a lot about what goes on in Westminster, the bad side. There isn't a good side, honestly, there isn't. So then, back to my roots. We lost my father about 4 years ago, so the farm comes to me. So at 68, just a lad, and I now have to take over the farm and sort it out. I actually rent the land out to another local farmer, and we look after, I actually shepherd his stock and help him farm, and we farm about 60 head of beef, and we have 100 acres, and the rest of it that the cows don't need is down to sea. Does that mean we're out of time? So I've got hours of this. So anyway, that's what we're doing now. I met Andy and we talked about electriculture, and we're about to start looking at that. But as you can see, Liz keeps me quite busy, and Andrew does his bit as well. So between farming and politics, I'm quite busy, but I'm trying to make more time for Andrew so we can get the electriculture started. It's an interesting time. Now, the farming side and why it's important. Mark left you with a lot of facts and information. Does anybody know the intervention price for barley in 1983? Does anybody know what intervention is? Intervention is the price that the EU paid you, right, the minimum price for a commodity, like wine or butter or barley. Remember the mountains and the lakes and all of this? Yes?
That's it.
Straight out. Oh, sorry, guy. Hey, should I start again?
No.
So intervention was the price that they had paid you is the rock bottom price. So you had a living, basically. The intervention price on barley in 1993, God, I'm showing my age now, 1983, was between 120 and 150 pound a ton, right? Mark, what's the price of barley now?
I think this week £148.
Can you think of any other industry? That wasn't set up, by the way, was it? No. Can you think of any other industry where anything like that would happen?
Precious metals.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's another good story. Can I change the subject again? In the late 1800s, they produced a silver coin, and it was worth £1. And for that silver coin, you could stay in any great hotel anywhere in Europe, or London. In America, you probably have a street at hotels for that sort of money then. How many of these silver coins do you think you need now to stay in a hotel in London? Half of one. It's gone from £1 to over 400. Now, as the man at the back said, precious metals have a value. Food has a value. We have a value. And it's time now that we, actually, I could go through the presentation I was going to show you, I suppose. Why did we do this? Well, you know my story. Liz has a very similar story, but a lot longer.
Yeah.
Liz has a very similar story, and she'll tell you about it and introduce one or two of our friends in a minute. We did this to get a fresh start. We don't want any baggage. We don't want politicians who given promises and then not lived up to them. We just don't want it. We want new people, we want you. Just like we want you to help the farmers, we want you to get involved. We want people with no baggage. Why no baggage? If people have baggage, you can control them. Why does nobody control Andrew Bridgen? Because they've took everything off him. He's got nothing left. Only his self-respect. Sorry, Andrew. They're not getting self-respect. I've worked with him for long enough to know that's his and he's keeping it. So no baggage, so nobody can get their claws into them and make them do what they want as opposed to what we want. We want people that care about the communities and in the UK as a whole. Those who know Alex and the team up here, the ex-Reform guys, they cared about the community. They cared about the community. Now what did Reform do to them? Kicked them out. Why? Because they couldn't get the clothes into them.
Because we're better than them.
You're much better. Much, much better. We want honesty and truth. No more lies. That's all we want. No more lies. And even if the truth is horrible, we still want to know. And then we'll make the decision. And then why the name? Without farmers and without food, you haven't got any freedom. It's as simple as that. If you can't feed yourselves, the government give you everything. Right? You'll be on universal credit. They'll tell you what you can do, what you can't do, and that's not what we want. So basically, what we want you to do tonight is grab some pieces of paper off the table, go and meet your local farmers and say, hey guys, have you seen this? You need to talk about this, because they're the future. We care, and we know now. Liz, can we have a few words from you, please? I've given you an easy evening. Yeah, very well. You need to talk to me.
Can you hear me? Yes, you can. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be back in Riddings. I was here in November last year, and we had a full house then, and it looks like we've got a full house tonight. I'm pleased to say, you might not know this, we've got people from South Wales here tonight, from the New Forest, from Herefordshire. So it's not just local people that have come out tonight, they've come from all over to see Mark the Bowler Hat, Andrew Bridgen, Andy, and I hope Farmers Food and Freedom. Why Farmers Food and Freedom? David has just explained, but there are 40% of this country don't vote at the moment. And when I was talking to Andrew some time ago, Andrew Bridgen, he said to me he had a really rough time in the House of Commons, and the only people that would speak to him and said keep going were the cleaners, the people that produced his tea and coffee, and the people that were working in the House of Commons on the fabric. This party is for people like them, real people in this country. I am sick to the death of listening to politicians who don't do what they say. We in this party will not have a manifesto. Manifestos are there to be broken. We're starting the party back to common law, and I see tonight we've got some common law specialists in the room. We'll take it right back to basics, and in common law you cause no harm, loss or injury, and on the other part of it is you do not break a contract. You'll see tonight, if you take away with you, we've only got a small leaflet so far, which gives you a number of things that the party will be based on. So I hope very much that this is what everybody would like. It will be expanded on, and we look forward to everybody taking part. It isn't just about farmers, it isn't just about food, and it isn't just about freedom. It covers every aspect of our lives. Andrew talked about the EU Defence Union. It's something I've worked on, and if you go onto YouTube, I think you'll see me, I think probably with Adam Bolton, the awful Sky News chap, when I pulled him to pieces over the EU Defence Union. And so we cover absolutely everything. Education, transport, child sex education in particular, 5G, climate change, you name it, it's covered. It isn't just about farmers and food and freedom, it covers everything. And on that happy note, I'm just going to give you two very short videos that I've done. One with a chap called Peter McElvenna, who you may know, and the other with the vet, Roger Meacock. Both of them, they're very short videos, but it just explains why they wanted to become part of Farmers Food and Freedom. Thank you very much.
Bear with me a minute, please.
Peter McElvenna, good morning, and you're going to do a very quick interview with us this morning. You were very kind when I first mentioned that we were starting the Farmers Food and Freedom Party to come along and say, yes, you thought this was not a bad idea. Can you tell us, because there's a lot of small parties about now, why you thought it was a good idea?
Well, one, because you say, and I get myself in trouble sometimes, Liz, for saying, yes, what is it you want to do? So when you have that kind of relationship connection with someone, you can just jump in and you trust their judgment. But why? Because it's reform is the Nigel show. And as entertaining as the Nigel show may be, it's not going to deliver. It's around that personality, that messianic figure, as Rupert Lowe said in that article. So I'm politically homeless since UKIP basically folded, in effect. And looking around, and I'd love to be engaged politically. I wonder, who do I vote for? So it's not just engaging with the public, it's actually personally, who I put next beside, and at the moment it's very difficult to know who. And therefore it is when you came Farmers, Food and Freedom. The issue of freedom, hugely concerned about surveillance, about privacy, about censorship. We are facing all of that. But then it seems as though we have abandoned our industries, and if we can't feed our population, if we rely elsewhere, then we are in dire straits. We just have to look at the tariffs that President Trump has put on the disruption, whether that's good or not, separate thing, but the disruption, I can call it, to the supply chain. And we need to be self-sufficient, and we are not. And I think it's key that we get back to actually supporting our farmers, and I've been to two of those demonstrations in Westminster. We need food security. It is key. And those who provide maybe are not the high-up superstars, and therefore they're ignored. But they're what makes us function, because if we don't have food, we don't function. It's quite simple. Probably Ned Miliband would actually get that, although it might be too far for him. So yeah, we need to regain our freedoms, that individual liberty, individual responsibility, and we need security with our food chain and many other areas. So I think it's perfect, it fits in, and why not give this a go? I think it may succeed, it may not, but you don't know if you don't try. And I think this is a great idea, something that can build, that can engage with the public, and I see this as having widespread public support.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, you're quite right. And I was talking to the wonderful Roger Meacott, the vet, yesterday, and they're desperately trying to get rid of meat, all meat, out of our diet by 2030, by all scurrilous means that they can think of. And, it may be that there's some people that are now vegan and vegetarian, and that's absolutely fine. But what about the rest of the people who have had a diet, for instance, of meat all their life, fresh meat, homegrown, specifically in the UK? What's going to happen to all the hill farmers, for instance, etc.? Now, this party isn't just about farming and food and freedom. It covers every sector, as you know. And the other main sector that we're going to cover is defence. And if you want freedom, you've got to talk about defence, haven't you?
Oh, hugely. Now, I think back in the Falklands, we were 5.5% of our GDP spent on defence. Then we went down to 2%. Now it's, well, let's take money from here and call that defence spending. As we did, we'll take money from here and call it foreign aid spending. So there's a lot of fiddling with the figures, and that's, I guess, what Rachel from Accounts is there to do, to fiddle those figures. But we need security, absolutely, and we need manufacturing to return to the UK. We cannot expect, look at our energy. The steel plant that was going to be shut down, and one of the issues was actually supplying energy, supplying coal. So we were buying coal from Japan and bring it all the way over. And it seems as though Japan doesn't actually produce coal. So the Japanese coal comes from Australia. So it goes Australia, Japan, UK, all because we can't mine 18 miles down the road from that plant. And the stupidity of net zero, the stupidity of let's trust NATO or the EU or the Americans, or I think we've forgotten our position in the world. Britain has always punched above its weight. For a little island to have, a quarter of the world, the empire doesn't make sense, but that's how geopolitics works. And we need to protect that. We need to protect our industries. We need to look at building out our defence and actually have an air force and a navy and an army that we are proud of. I think I saw the other day that we had 30 battle tanks that were actually ready to go. We've got 2 aircraft carriers that spent most of their time getting fixed or getting updated. So we don't actually, we spend billions on these huge projects and they sit in a dock somewhere getting fixed. And I've seen some of the warships have been withdrawn because we don't have enough sailors. The whole thing is, if it wasn't about our actual security and existence as a nation, it would be laughable. Sadly, it's not, and it's serious. And the Tories have destroyed our defence industry. They chipped away at that. Labour seemingly the ones that want to increase that to 3%. We live in a crazy world when a socialist government is actually more in the right than the Conservative government. So I agree 100%. We need to restore pride in our armed forces. Whenever we have days to celebrate, like VE Day coming up, remember, in 80 years, that has to be part of our education system. You want the public to come out. And I think kids now, they don't even think, well, Remembrance Day, what's that about? They need to be part of that. We need to instill this belief in our position as a nation, and that is our military. And sadly, because the military has been decimated, that we no longer see it represented in our front benches, in our government, in our royal family. It's not visible, and we need to change that. And part of that is you have to put in money. If you want to build something, it costs, and we have to decide as a nation what we put into that and rebuilding our military. So it's something that we are proud of and can protect us.
And doesn't go into the EU Defence Union, which is what everybody seems to be hell-bent on. We need our own defence force. But when you think, Peter, now that the numbers in the army are less than the people that we've got staying in hotels that have come over here illegally, then you know that we're in trouble. But all these things under Farmers' Food and Freedom will be attacked, including education, transport, the health service, excess deaths, all the things that aren't being talked about, we're going to bring out. And for your support, it's just absolutely invaluable. I can't thank you enough.
No, it's fine. And look, my last point is we want a party that is principled, that knows what it believes and stands and presents that to the public as the way that our nation should be run. And sadly, with reform, it's focus groups and opinion polls, and it's whatever you think the public will want. And I think it was Henry Ford that said if he asked the public what they wanted in terms of transport, they would have said a faster horse. So come up with an idea, with a vision for the country. That is something I think that reform are hugely lacking. And the only vision is superstar status of Mr. Farage, of that leader. And we want to have a fully a full manifesto with ideas, with visions on how you build out the country in every area. And that's what that's also what I like about what you've put down, Liz, that you want to offer solutions in every area, and not just one or two sound bites, but actually doing something that changes the country and maybe reclaims part of the goodness that we have in the UK.
Yes, the only thing I would come to grief with you over is the word manifesto. And every manifesto has been broken over the last few years. They're not worth we're calling this a contract that under common law, which we're going back to underpin everything. You cannot break a contract. So did an hour's recording once in New Zealand and forgot to press the record button, so I'm always very nervous. Hello everybody, this is a very short introduction to a wonderful vet called Roger Meacock from down in Wiltshire in the West Country, and he's just going to tell us why he's joined the Farmers Food and Freedom Party. Roger, good evening and welcome.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, very happy to be here. And when Mark told me that the Farmers Food and Freedom Party was starting, would I like to be associated in some way? Then I was more than happy to, because I started off my vet life as a farm-only vet. Our food is crucial to our security in the UK, and farming has been under attack since as far as I can remember, back when I first started in practice in the 1990s. I sort of felt it started back there, and obviously it's ramped up, more recently to a greater extent. So, I'm very, very much aware of the attack. I'm also very much aware that it's not a miscalculation. Actually, it's very much a deliberate attack. There is an agenda that is in government documents and by organisations that have put documents together that have been bought and paid for by the government, which they've got an aim to bring meat and dairy consumption down to zero. So the agenda is to get rid of meat and dairy consumption, which means they must be thinking of getting rid of dairy and meat and livestock farming altogether, which is absolutely criminal for the land as well as for our food. And there's lots of other things wrong with our politics as well. So more than happy to be involved and hopefully get us back to a less litigious, controlled way of living, and get back to some old proper values that I know is what we're trying to embody.
Roger, thank you very much. As you probably don't know, but I work a lot with countries all over the world, and in particular I've done an awful lot with the farmers in New Zealand, because New Zealand is the country that falls off the bottom of the planet, and the plight down there. But what people don't realise is it's exactly the same down there as it is here. Exactly the same agenda is being played out across the world. Unfortunately, Roger, farmers have thought here that we've just got naff governments in the last few years. But as you just pointed out, this is a different agenda, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody's heard of net zero, but there's probably a lot of farmers who aren't aware there's an absolute zero document as well that was, again, a government-inspired and financed report by a group called FIRES, F-I-R-E-S. So, that the agenda is definitely there, and they're saying by 2030 they can get meat consumption down to zero, but maybe not that far, but maybe down to 16 kilos per person per year, which is, crazy to, meat and grass-fed ruminants are the sort of base of should be the pyramid of our food pyramid. They are the most important, most nutritious food we can have, and we don't want to lose them. And we need to get this nation healthy again, and that's going to be done best on the back of farming and getting back into regenerative farming as well.
Roger, thank you very much. We're only going to do a very short one tonight. You've very kindly come and agreed to come down. We've got an event on the 17th of May at Exeter Racecourse, and you're going to come down and talk to us then. And of course, we'll put up that anybody can look at your website and the work that you've done, particularly on things like PCR testing recently. They're obviously going to try and get rid of farming and the livestock through foot and mouth. So the PCR testing that they're going to do is going to prove that we, beyond all reasonable doubt, that we've got foot and mouth back here. What a load of baloney, I'll use the word.
Yeah, I think it starts with B. I'm happy to come down and explain to farmers what the tests are and how they are being misappropriately used and interpreted. Farmers need to be aware of what they're being asked to potentially to subject their animals to. So, I think, the only way we're going to be able to resist is through knowledge and truth, and that's what I know we're trying to stand for and trying to bring. So, bring it on.
thank you very much indeed, and we look forward to seeing you in person in Devon. And I hope that we do more interviews like this, but of a longer nature. But thank you for taking the time out this evening.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks very much, and I hope you have a good evening. And as hello to everybody who knows me there.
Okay, everybody, thank you. Are you going to join us again, Mark? Yeah. One thing that spoke to mind during the last speaker. I live in the northeast of England, County Durham, and we had an open cast mine, the last one in the northeast of England, just along the road from where we farm. On our farm, we actually sit on top of 1 million tons of world-class quality coking coal, and it's called the Priestfield site. And the Priestfield site runs right round the valley, and it goes to this open cast site. And it was all up and running, run by the Banks Group, and all of the coal was sold to Tata Steel. Remember, they used to have a couple of those blast furnace things, and they were running on British coal, producing the best coal in the best steel in the entire world. A guy called Jenrick, have you heard of him? He's a conservative, right? He's got a mouth which goes quite a lot. Jenrick and his mate, who got done for fiddling, shut it down with coal left in the ground. And all the coal that was left in the ground was sold to Tata. So they didn't get the coal, they had to get dirty coal from Poland, and they couldn't make the steel. And look what happened to them. Okay? So that's another story outside of agriculture, but the important thing is all the coal is still in the ground. Okay? That resource is there. You've heard how much gas we have, that resource is all there. Our kids are going to have a wonderful future if we can get rid of these bloody idiots at the top.
Guys, thank you all so much for staying so late. Conscious it's nearly 10 o'clock. It's been amazing to come back here again and to get the chance to address the room again. Thank you for Andy speaking about electroculture. The legend, Andrew Bridgen. For Dave and Liz coming to talk about farmers' food and freedom. For those of you who have taken the time to travel from some long distances, and those who have taken the time to support each and every one of us on our journey. So guys, thank you very much for all you've done. And I'm sure the guys on the stalls, and especially the guys at the back of the organic veg boxes, don't forget them, and don't forget to tip matey before he goes home. Thank you, everybody.